Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy Healthy Start to this nice Friday morning over here as we wrap up this nice week. This week been more or less uneventful, honestly, as far as the higher term timeframes go. Obviously, all of the actions going on in the short term timeframes, but next week, a lot of economic events, even one a little bit later today as well, right around the U.S. market open. But next week's a big one as we do have the U.S. midterms, and then of course CPI data is coming out as well. So I expect that we're probably still range bound as far as the higher term timeframes go until we surpass those sort of events. Other than that, I wanted to address some comments that have been seen a lot recently where people have been using the Bybit link for 0% maker fees, and then they thought that they weren't getting them. Well, we actually spoke directly with the representative yesterday, and we even back tested it with someone as well. And yes, while on some people's profiles it might not show it that it's 0% maker fees for derivative contracts, in the back end it 100% is. So all good in the hood right there. We've confirmed it. We back tested good, and if there's any issues, definitely hit up Bybit themselves with the link in the description below. All right, sweet. Let's just jump right on into it. I wanted to start off today with the Dixie analysis of which Dixie as well traditional markets too are going to be closing the weekly here. So again, I am looking at this as a very likely top on the weekly until Dixie has reclaimed 114. In the short term, we are getting a bounce that we were looking for over the past few days here. This one actually traveled a little bit further than what I was looking for, but ultimately anything again below 114 is still distribution. So this is setting up not necessarily for this week, but probably next week resolution, any sort of a trade below last week's low, which was 109.5. And then yes, I'd be looking for the next leg down somewhere around, $107.5 to $108, probably another a bounce attempt there. And then it works its way down yet again, probably helping risk on assets. Keep in mind that today for the weekly closure, we will see weekly momentum continue to the downside on Dixie if it does close below about $1.13 which right now is trading about a $0.50 below, which is kind of big. So barring a nasty green girthy dildo before end of day, well, probably does hold true coming into next week, and then we probably see the action happen in next week realistically. Other than that, we should also very quickly address traditional markets, which are really, really interesting right here. Again, if you're looking at these markets as correlated, which more often than not they are, I still think that this is, a topic of consideration here, because I do want to represent the other side, as best as I can. And in this case, weekly for Nas futures, which again closes today, is going to be confirming hidden bearish divergence. And just another lower high with any sort of a closure, especially below about, about 11,000, just under $11,000. So, if it does close below there coming into next week, kind of have to still be looking at it to play within these lower blocks, which does make it a little bit difficult for Bitcoin, although Bitcoin's doing something so far completely different. So let's go back to the Bitcoin charts. Yesterday, we were looking at still kind of the same range going on. I did have a little bit of a downwards bias here based off of traditional marks, which is obviously going to be, we did test the lows to be fair, but didn't break below the lows. So haven't really seen any sort of resolutions, nothing really new here, unfortunately. So as far as this goes, it's back into the middle of the fucking range. It's the same thing as before. 20,800 to the upside is going to be the momentum pivot on the higher term timeframes. On the lower term timeframes, like a 4-hour time frame, 20,950 closure above there. And yes, looking for the next leg up somewhere around mid to upper 21s, let's say 21.5, to 21.7 or so. And to the downside, I'd be looking at basically 200,000 or 200,000, Jesus Christ, man, $20,000, especially on a medium or higher term time frame closing basis to get that next continuation drive to the downside. At that point, you'd probably be seeing Dixie reclaiming 114. You'd probably be seeing the NASDAQ chart that we just looked at, as well as SPY futures as well, breaking down into next week. But for right now, it's actually kind of hard to get to garner a bias off of those other correlated markets, as Bitcoin kind of doing some on its own right here. So as far as indicators go on the lower term timeframes, 4-hour time frame is expanding as we were looking for yesterday. So could we see resolution today? Maybe. I still think that this sets up for next week. But what I do think is really, really interesting here is that it's not just the 4-hour that is seeing volatility fully contract. It's also the 6-hour as well. Let me get rid of the LARP lines here. And the 12-hour, as you can see here too, are all on extreme lows. So this is setting up. We are going to see a resolution on this range. It's possible today, probably Monday, or maybe over the weekend. It could be one of those scenarios. So again, resolutions on the 4-hour time frame would be with a closure above 2950 or below about 2100 or so, or 26. $20,060 is what I'm trying to say. To the upside, again, we already went over those targets. To the downside, probably working its way back down to, the weekly range lows, ultimately low 19s to upper 18s, with bounces along the way, very likely. But here's the thing. If we go and reference stochastic momentum for Bitcoin specifically, we can see a lot of very interesting things, which is why I do bring up that sort of 20,800 pivot. 12-hour time frame will turn up on stochastic momentum above 20,730 on a 12-hour time frame closure. Daily will also be turning up above 20,800. 6-hour time frame will also be turning up above 20,300, so actually hitting it right now, or above it right now, I should say. 4-hour time frame is also headed up above 20,200 or so, and hourly is probably going to be flippy floppy, but in this case also up as long as above 20,650. So, we are starting to see the time frames starting to coalesce with each other, but ultimately, at the end of the day, still need to see an actual range resolution here. Otherwise, it's just kind of a fleeting price action, if you will. Anyways, what I really wanted to get into here, however, is a signal that is setting up on the 2-day time frame. This signal is obviously going to be different than the daily signal, but it is of particular interest, being that it is a higher term time frame comparison to the daily signal. So this is a 2-day time frame over here. It's another volatility versus stochastic momentum signature. This one I do think is just, being that it is a higher term time frame, it is better. The drawback with it is that we only have 10 iterations throughout the full history of CME. Of those 10 iterations, 8 out of 10 played out in the way that I'm about to describe right now. So what essentially is a signal? When 2-day volatility is on extreme lows and then expanding from those extreme lows back above the critical zone, or back above Lisa Screen's horizontal line right here, the direction of the 2-day stochastic oscillator has been correct in getting the volatility expansion direction 80% of the time, so 8 out of 10. And the average move has been about 39.5%, done over the course of about 3.5 weeks. So what does this likely align with? It likely aligns with a resolution on next week's event. We're gonna start to update on this stochastic momentum pivot here in the meantime, and then that's probably going to carry Bitcoin for the next, or in probably all markets, crypto included, throughout November, and then probably bleeds into the 5-day signal, which I won't bring out today. We'll speak about on the weekend. And my damn camera is doing something weird. I don't know what the hell's going on over there, but there are more important things to be speaking about right now. Anyways, as of right now, the 2-day time frame stochastic momentum pivot is 19,280. Which obviously Bitcoin's well above. Now, this one will close on Monday night, not tonight, but Monday night. And you can also see that it's starting to get in some pretty critical zones over here. That does imply that it's going to be probably a little bit on the easier side, let's say, to turn it down coming into next week. But of course, we do see a lot of breakouts and breakdowns in the extreme zones anyways. For example, this one over here in April 26 on the move to the downside, which was a 37% move to the downside all the way from, above $40,000 to a wick low of $25,000. So ultimately, just because it's in the critical zone doesn't mean that it can't see major continuation from these numbers. It certainly can. It's more important the actual direction of the stochastic oscillator, which right now is up, and again will remain to the upside as long as Bitcoin is closing above 19,300 on CME specifically. So that's kind of the thing that I'm waiting for next week. Until then, the eyes are on kind of the short-term timeframes right here. I just don't have strong opinions on this price action right now. My strong opinion is on an actual range resolution. Momentum oscillators say probably test the top side of the range, and if you start to see closures above 2,800, especially on a daily, that's going to look good for continuation. And at that point, we can start to look at price action probably somewhere around the 0.5 here. Also, I should reference the data here. I completely forgot to do that. But as far as the average move goes, based off of this potential signal, well, let's just see if it does remain to the upside on average. We're looking at, we'd probably be looking at a move somewhere around the summer highs, which would be significant. Especially if Bitcoin can reclaim the summer highs, you're probably going to see that rally then bleed into the 5-day signal, which is probably going to take it much higher. Probably closer to $30,000 if that happens. By the same token, if next week you start to see it turn down and fail these pivots, at that point, well, it's hard hats on yet again. 40% to the downside or so would put Bitcoin in like the $13,000-$14,000 range. The bottom end of the first standard deviation from the current high would put Bitcoin 15-ish or so So ultimately, a lot of things are probably hinged on next week's events there, which I suspect that we're just all gonna be waiting around for. There's absolutely no way for me to know the actual resolution of those events. Even if I did, I probably wouldn't know how to play it anyways, because so often you see the opposite happen of what you think would logically be likely to happen. But yeah, that's just the name of the game at the end of the day. So so that is why over the weekend here, I'm probably just looking at this range again. A resolution obviously is going to imply further price action. But other than that, there's really not too much else to be doing. I think the best thing to be looking at right now for Bula Hopium is Dixie, as Dixie continues to trade sideways in this range, looking a little bit more like distribution day by day, but still likely to take its time into next week. All right, sweet. So that's just a long way of saying it's sandpaper range time, baby. and so prepare for a little bit more sideways. All right, with that said, take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.